The Austin Healey Sprite is a small open sports car produced in the United Kingdom from 1958 until 1971. The Sprite was announced to the press in Monte Carlo by the British Motor Corporation on the 20th of May 1958, 2 days after that year's Monaco Grand Prix. It was intended to be a low-cost model that a chap could keep in his bike shed, yet be the successor to the sporting versions of the pre-war Austin 7. The Sprite was designed by the Donald Healey Motor Company, with production being undertaken at the MG factory at Abingdon. It first went on sale for £669, using a tuned version of the Austin A-Series engine and as many other components from existing cars as possible to keep costs down. When the Mk2 Sprite was introduced in 1961, it was joined by a badge-engineered MG version, the Midget, reviving a model name used by MG from the late 1920s through to the mid-1950s. Enthusiasts often refer to these later Sprites and Midgets collectively as Spridgets. The MG-badged version of the car continued in production for several years after the Austin Healey brand ceased to exist. Mark I. Austin Healey Sprite. Also called Austin Sprite. Production 1958 to 1961. Designer Donald Healey. Engine 948 cc. 0.9 L. A-Series 1443 HP. Dimensions. Wheelbase 2032 mm, 80.0 in. Length 3480 mm, 137.0 in. Width 1346 mm, 53.0 in. Height 1200 mm, 47.2 in, with bonnet up. The Sprite quickly became affectionately known as the Frogeye in the UK and the Bugeye in the US, because its headlights were prominently mounted on top of the bonnet, inboard of the front wings. The car's designers had intended that the headlights could be retracted, with the lenses facing skyward when not in use. A similar arrangement was used many years later on the Porsche 928. However, cost-cutting by BMC led to the flip-up mechanism being deleted. Therefore, the headlights were simply fixed in a permanently upright position, giving the car its distinctive, cute, feature. The body was styled by Jerry Coker, with subsequent alterations by Les Ireland following Coker's emigration to the US in 1957. The problem of providing a rigid structure to an open-top sports car was resolved by Barry Bilby, Healey's chassis designer, who adapted the idea provided by the Jaguar D-Type, with rear suspension forces routed through the bodyshell's floor pan. The Sprite's chassis design was the world's first volume production sports car to use unitary construction, where the sheet metal body panels, apart from the bonnet, take many of the structural stresses. The original metal gauge, thickness of steel, of the rear structure specified by Bilby was reduced by the Austin Design Office during prototype build. The two front chassis legs projecting forward from the passenger compartment mean the shell is not a full monocoque. The front sheet metal assembly, including the bonnet, hood, and wings, was a one-piece unit, hinged from the back, that swung up to allow access to the engine compartment. The 43 bhp, 948 cc OHV engine, coded 9cc, was derived from the Austin A35 and Morris Minor 1000 models, also BMC products, but upgraded with twin 11/8-inch SU carburetors. The rack and pinion steering was derived from the Morris Minor 1000 and the front suspension from the Austin A35. The front suspension was a coil spring and wishbone arrangement, with the arm of the Armstrong lever shock absorber serving as the top suspension link. The rear axle was both located and sprung by quarter-elliptic leaf springs, again with lever arm shock absorbers and top links. The road wheels were 13 inches and all cars were invariably fitted with Dunlop Crosby tires, usually the Gold Seal model in the 5.20x13 size, although later Frog Eyes shipped to North America wore 5.60x13 Dunlop cross plies. There were no exterior door handles. The driver and passenger were required to reach inside to open the door. There was also no boot lid, owing to the need to retain as much structural integrity as possible, and access to the spare wheel and luggage compartment was achieved by tilting the seat backs forward and reaching under the rear deck, a process likened to potholing by many owners, as the space available was dark but cavernous. Engine 1958-1961 to 948 cc A Series 1.4, 43 horsepower, 32 kilowatts, at 5,200 revolutions per minute and 52 pound-feet, 71 newton-meters, at 3,300 revolutions per minute. A car was tested by the British magazine The Motor in 1958. It had a top speed of 82.9 miles per hour, 133.4 kilometers per hour, and could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour, 97 kilometers per hour, in 20.5 seconds. Fuel consumption of 43 miles per imperial gallon, 6.6 L, 100 kilometers, 36 mpg US, was recorded. The test car cost £678, including taxes of £223. The BMC Competitions Department entered Austin Healey Sprites in major international races and rallies, their first major success coming when John Sprinzell and Willie Cave won their class on the 1958 Alpine Rally. In 1959, the Sprite was introduced to the U.S. market by winning its class in the 12-hour race at Sebring, Florida. Private competitors also competed with much success in Sprites. Because of its affordability and practicality, the Austin Healey Sprite was developed into a formidable competition car, assuming many variants by John Sprinzell, Speedwell and WSM. Many owners use their Austin Healey Sprites in competition today, 50 years after its introduction. Austin Healey Sprite Mark II. Production 1961 to 1964. Body and chassis. Related MG Midget MKI. Engine 948 cc. 0.9 L. Later 1098 cc. 1.1 L. A Series 1.4. Dimensions. Wheelbase 2032 mm. 80.0 in. Length 3,305 mm. 130.1 in. Width 1,346 mm, 53.0 in. Height 48.25 in, 1,226 mm. The Mark II, announced at the end of May 1961, 8, used the same 948 cc engine code 9CG, but with larger twin 11/4-inch SU carburetors, increasing power to 46.5 bhp. A close ratio gearbox was fitted. The bodywork was completely revamped, with the headlights migrating to a more conventional position in the wings, either side of a full-width grille and a conventional bonnet. At the rear, styling borrowed from the soon-to-be-announced MGB gave a similarly more modern look, with the added advantages of an opening boot lid and conventional rear bumper bar. The addition of the boot lid required the introduction of squared-off rear wheel arches to retain enough metal in the rear structure to give good rigidity. The result was a much less eccentric-looking sports car, though at the expense of some 100 pounds extra weight. In contrast to the Froguy, the later cars are often collectively referred to as square-bodied Sprites by enthusiasts. In October 1962, both Sprites and Midgets were given a long-stroke 1098 cc engine code 10CG, which was also fitted in single carburetor form to the Austin A40 and Morris Minor 1000, which nevertheless remained the Minor 1000. A strengthened gearbox with Porsche, Borg-ring, synchromesh was introduced to cope with the extra power 56 bhp. Front disc brakes were also introduced at the same time and wire wheels became an option. 31,665 Mark II Sprites were made. Innocenti also produced their own version of the Sprite, using the standard production underframe, initially shipped out from England. The Sprite Mark III was announced in March 1964. It was also marketed as the MG Midget Mark II. Differences between the two were again restricted to minor trim detailing. Although still 1098 cc, the engine had a stronger block casting, and the size of the crankshaft main bearings was increased to 2 inches, engine code 10cc. A new, slightly curved glass windscreen was introduced with hinged quarterlights and wind-up side windows. Exterior door handles were provided for the first time, with separate door locks. Though the car could now be secured with a soft top roof, the added protection was limited. The rear suspension was modified from quarter-elliptic to semi-elliptic leaf springs, which gave a more comfortable ride for a near-negligible weight penalty, as well as providing additional axle location, the upper links fitted to the quarter-elliptic models being deleted. Though scarcely sybaritic, these changes helped the Sprite and Midget compete with the recently released Triumph Spitfire. 25,905 Mark III Sprites were made. Engine 1964-66 to 1098 cc A Series 1.4, 59 horsepower, 44 kilowatts, at 5,750 revolutions per minute and 65 pound-feet, 88 newton-meters, at 3,500 revolutions per minute. Mark IV and Austin Sprite. Also called Austin Sprite. Production 1966 to 1971. Body and chassis. Related MG Midget M. Engine 1275 cc, 1.3 L. Dimensions. Wheelbase 2032 mm, 80.0 in. Length 3492 mm, 137.5 in. Width 1397 mm, 55.0 in. Austin Healey Sprite Mark IV. The next upgrade was presented at the London Motor Show in October 1966. Besides receiving the larger 1275 cc engine, which disappointed enthusiasts by being in a lower state of tune than that of the Mini Cooper S, the Mark IV and its cousin the Mark III MG Midget had several changes which were more than cosmetic. Most notable is the change from a removable convertible top, which had to be stowed in the boot, to a permanently affixed, folding top of greatly improved design, which was much easier to use. Separate brake and clutch master cylinders were fitted, as car manufacturers' thoughts began to turn to making their products safer. On US market versions, the larger engine sacrificed some of its performance from 1968 on, through the use of smog pumps and other modifications to comply with federal emission control requirements. 1969 was the final year the Sprite was exported to the US. At the same time, reversing lamps were made a standard fitment and the car's electrical system was switched to negative earth and powered by an alternator rather than a dynamo. This was also the first year that reclining seats were fitted. A facelift was carried out for the 1970 model year, beginning in September 1969, after Austin Healey and MG became part of British Leyland. These largely cosmetic revisions were to update the appearance of the car, now 10 years old, and minimize the difference between the Sprite and Midget versions to reduce production costs. Both cars now had the same cosmetic features, differing only in their badges. Alongside a new range of body colors, both cars now had the same grille, based on the plainer square mesh design of the MKI onwards Sprite, but now finished in satin black with the addition of a chrome embellisher. The body sills were painted satin black with a chrome strip between them, and the upper bodywork and the name, Sprite, was applied in chrome capital letters on the sill just behind the front wheel arch. MG Midgets had their own badge in the same style. 1970 Austin Healey Sprite Mark IV with revised grille and steel wheels with cast alloy. Slimmer bumpers were fitted, with those at the rear changing to 2/4 bumpers with the gap in the middle filled by a square number plate. Rubber-capped overriders were standard fitment front and rear. The seats were now a slimmer, flatter design with a more modern upholstery pattern. Some body colors could now be ordered with the option of the seats, door trim and floor carpets in beige rather than the standard black. 1970 model year Sprites were fitted with new cast alloy-looking ventilated wheels, although they were still made of steel, although the option for wire spoke wheels remained. As launched, the 1970 Sprites had their windscreen frames and windscreen wiper arms painted anti-dazzle, matte black, as was popular on modern American muscle cars and rally cars of the era, but these features were expensive to produce and unpopular with buyers, so only around 20 cars were produced before these reverted to the original polished metal appearance. 22,790 Mark IV Sprites were made. Engine 1966-1971 to 1275 cc A Series 1.4, 65 horsepower, 48 kilowatts, at 6,000 revolutions per minute and 72 pound-feet, 98 newton-meters, at 3,000 revolutions per minute. The Healey connection was discontinued in 1971, so the final 1,022 Sprites built were simply Austin Sprites.